And now it's time for Mob Talk Radio with your host, Jeff Canarsie.
And welcome to Mob Talk Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Canarsie. We've got a bit of breaking news today. A lot of people aren't covering this topic in general. We've been covering it pretty much for the last couple of years. But today we have news breaking that Camorra member and former co-cartel head of the Kinhan super cartel is finally doing what a lot of people suspected. He's become an informant. For those that have not been following the story, Danny Kinahan, alleged Irish mob boss and alleged super narco trafficker, is officially on the FBI's most wanted list and the DEA's most wanted list as well. Kinahan comes from a lineage of mobsters led by his father, Christy Kinhan, who was the leader and the founder of the Kinhan crime family, who allegedly dealt in arms trafficking as well as narco trafficking. While Kinhan would moonlight as a boxing promoter attached specifically to Tyson Fury, it wasn't until 2009 when Kinhan showed up on law enforcement's radars. In a 2009 diplomatic cable sent from the United States Embassy to South America, then to the Pentagon, Kinhan was described in that cable as a major narco trafficker. Then in 2010, Kinhan would be arrested in Spain when Spanish, Irish, and British organized crime agencies jumped in. In 2016, there was an attempt hit caught on video at the Regency Hotel in Dublin, Ireland. 3 men would be shot and killed, including High Associate David Byrne. Kinhan allegedly would escape through a window and just wasn't shot or killed in that event. 2 years later, authorities would get information that Kinhan had ordered the death of mob rival Gary Hutch. Since then, Danny Kinahan has been on the run, taking root in Dubai. But it wasn't until 2022 that the United States got involved. And they began by seizing all of his assets in the United States, along with Thomas Kavanaugh, who's since been arrested. In April of 2022, the Office of Foreign Assets Control and the U.S. Department of Treasury imposed sanctions against Danny Kinahan and his father, Christy, and his younger brother, Christy Jr., and 4 others allegedly associated with the Kinhan crime family. They were added to the blocked persons list, which means they could go after anybody who associates with them, they could seize any property within the U.S. financial system, and more. In April of 2022, the DEA offered $5 million to anybody who could provide information for the arrest, location, and conviction of the Kinahans. On April 21st, the U.S. Arab Emirates seized all of the Kinahan's bank assets. Later that November, 80-some associates were arrested. On June 5th, Liam Byrne, allegedly a high-end and entrusted associate of Danny Kinahan, was arrested in Spain while eating lunch. Jack Kavanaugh was also arrested with Byrne. Authorities believe that Kinahan has actually left Dubai, many planting him somewhere else in the Mideast. But, like I said, we have news coming out today. Raffale Imperiale, who got arrested back in November of 2022, was, by most accounts, according to law enforcement, Kinahan's partner in a mega-narco distributorship, was arrested in Dubai. Imperiale, alleged to be a member of the Camorra, was one half of a major narco ring traveling from Italy to Colombia. Not long after his arrest, 28 others would be arrested in Naples. So since then, he's been sitting in a cell in Italy, and authorities would actually come in after a couple of months, and they would basically arrest him again on an arrest warrant, and they ended up seizing 400 tons of cocaine. So they just brought more charges against him. Since then, Imperiale has been pretty much wasting away in a cell waiting for his trial to come up in Italy. However, Imperiale, like most other people, doesn't want to go to prison. And what he's begun doing is telling American, Italian, Spanish, and Irish authorities everything about Danny Kinahan and everything about his operations. So far, he's given authorities information needed to decode text messages on an alleged secure system which was used by the Kinahans. It was that information that Imperiale gave which led to the arrest of Liam Byrne. According to police, through EncroChat, which the Kinahans and other groups were using for crypted text messaging, Imperiale has given the authorities all of the nicknames, numbers, and aliases that Danny Kinahan was using. In fact, Imperiale has named more than 4 dozen people and given them names and aliases about everybody who was on this chat. Imperiale has further given information about Ndrangheta as well as the Albanian Mafia. And so it looks, based on everything that's coming out today in the last few days, that the doors are really closing on Danny Kinahan for sure. One of the problems that law enforcement has had is locating Danny Kinahan. Some have said he fled to Iran. Some have said other places. The problem is that what we've always talked about when we talk about organized crime, and what Italy has specifically done over the last decade, is they seize assets. Assets controls everything. If you can take all of the money away from them and they have no way to put their hands on it, that is usually what creates an atmosphere where someone who is wanted ends up coming out into the public. They have no other choice. In this particular situation, I think it's probably remotely easy to understand that Kinahan's probably got money everywhere, but the authorities cannot seem to locate him. They don't know where he is. They don't know how to find him. And so far, they've just started doing what Europe has done and seizing his assets and money. Today, with it coming out of Imperiale, is now giving them all the information, is going to be the nail in the coffin for Danny Kinahan eventually. Eventually, they will catch him, but as before, where they may have, narcotics trafficking and some other things, apparently there were some murders that were discussed in this EncroChat, which is encrypted text messaging, and apparently Imperiale has been able to give them information about what that was regarding and why. So the doors are closing in. It's one thing if you cannot find somebody. It's another when you seize all their assets, because once you seize assets, a guy has to start moving around. Eventually, he is going to run out of money, and that's sort of when the authorities are going to close in. The mere fact that Imperiale has been basically sitting in jail for almost 2 years now and is just now starting to provide information, that information will probably lead authorities to finding Kinahan and his whereabouts. Because if you are involved in what they're alleged to be involved in, obviously you know how somebody moves, how somebody acts, what somebody does. And so it's probably just a matter of time. So we'll see how it goes. But this is, again, one of those things where this is humongous. For those that do follow our podcast, we have talked about I forget the exact number, but there was a huge drug seizure in Philadelphia back, I want to say a year and a half ago, and it was something like $4 billion or $40 million worth of coke or something, but that was controlled by the Kinhan cartel. So we'll see what happens, but it looks now, whereas, I think if I'm Kinhan, I don't want to speak for anybody because these are just allegations until proven. But if I'm Kinhan, I go to Iran. I go there where I can buy help, and I go somewhere where I can't be extradited. Originally, Dubai was that place, but Dubai doesn't want problems. The UAE does not want problems with the United States and other groups. So that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. But this is a new tactic which the United States of America hasn't really ever used before. It's sort of a European model, and we'll see what comes of it. But this is something that I think you're going to start seeing with organized crime in general. Italian authorities have used this against Ndrangheta, and it's worked fantastic. They've been able to seize assets, and eventually it leads them to whoever they're looking for. So I can see the United States maybe in the next decade starting to use that sort of asset seizure to get who they want to get. It's in many ways, it's more powerful than RICO when it comes to asset forfeiture. because they basically push a button and you can't get access to anything. And then when they do arrest you, then they want you to explain where all that money came from. And if you can't, well, with the U.S. RICO laws, if you can't explain where it came from, then they automatically assume it came from criminality. Therefore, they can take it and seize it. And if there's an informant in the case, they're going to get 25% of it. That's just how it works. So we'll see what's going to happen down the line here with Danny Kinahan and everybody else. But it's interesting to see the United States employing this tactic.